the next 15 minutes or so, I'm going to talk largely about Vicky has already talked about. I would be referring to some of the very interesting insights that Vicky gave us, perhaps bring a slightly different structure to this discussion. And of course, leave you with four questions around what is it that we really need to be able to ready for the future. And I would say perpetually ready for the future. And there's a reason why I emphasize on this word perpetually. Vicky mentioned very interestingly that perhaps the last year has seen acceleration of 10 years of digital transformation happening in 1 year, which is largely true. However, a large part of this transformation happened in a very reactive manner. We were shaken up as the business world because of an external event, and a lot of organizations and a lot of individuals were caught unprepared for this unknown future. All the business continuity plans and the technology, everything in certain cases kind of went out of the window. However, I believe as HR fraternity, we were able to save the world in 2020. And 2021, our task, and I would say 2021 and beyond, we are tasked to rebuild this workplace and rebuild this workplace in a very proactive manner and not just in a reactive manner, the way perhaps we did, which was the call of the hour last year, right? In fact, if you look at some of the things have permanently changed. 84% of the employees, for example, now prefer flexible working. 78% of the people have said that this also is having a negative impact on their mental health. Organizations have dramatically increased their investments in AI and other automation projects. 20% are seeing massive cost cutting and cost reduction due to reallocation of funds from real estate. That's a massive change there. Skill gap is suddenly extended further. More and more people, in fact 87% of the executives, as per a McKinsey study, are saying that they are facing a skill gap. So clearly we are not getting into a new normal, as they say, or we are not resetting. If anything, I believe the future will be a new super normal, and we will be actually unsettling a lot of traditional paradigms. In fact, I love this observation from this gentleman who says that the central question of 2025 will be, what are people for in a world that does not need their labor and where only a minority are needed to guide the bot-based economy? Now, this corroborates to what you just asked, and 76% people said that AI will change, and this is one of the significant changes. So while Vicky alluded to the importance of reskilling, I think world is not just sitting and looking at massive need for reskilling. There is a big case for us to relook at the entire perspective of life that we have. So it is, if there is a term called re-outlooking, I think that will be more appropriate here. Clearly, as organizations are restarting, there are four challenges that are paramount. And I think every organization has to now look at these challenges proactively. The first is, of course, the technology challenge, the mental health challenge, the no policy challenge, and of course, the skill challenge. So what is the technology challenge? Before the pandemic, digitization was a top priority for majority of the organization. However, it was a discretionary, and B, every organization had certain set of priorities and therefore their own decision-making factors. It was a desirable thing to digitize certain things. Suddenly now, the world has changed to a digital-first economy. And therefore, in HR now, the paradigm is that everything that can be digitized must be digitized immediately. And that brings a very unique challenge for each of the companies or organizations out there, because the maturity of each of the organization is different. We just can't go and imbibe the latest technology and just bring it home and start using. It doesn't work, because each organization has a policy framework, has a process framework, and more importantly, it has an incumbent technology framework. So therefore, how do you leverage AI, cloud computing, IoT, all those 7, 8 factors that you had, Clive, in your list, is something that has to be very, very carefully designed. While traditionally we have known a large part of IT projects, almost 45% of them fail. Now is not the time for those kind of experimentation. So the first thing, when we look at how recruiting is changing, learning is changing, payroll is changing, even bot-based inquiries are changing. While it is great, first thing is that in order to mitigate the challenge of technology, you got to first assess where you are on the maturity continuum, and then design your transformation agenda. That's going to be super critical. The second thing is around this mental health challenge. Two things have happened in Asia. First of all, almost 82% people reported that 2020 has been the most mentally draining year or the most stressful year ever for them. And they are really looking forward to some kind of help. And the second statement is very important because the social stigma that was attached specifically in this part of the world around mental health is kind of going away. 82% of the people across Asia and almost 92% people in India said that they would prefer a bot to discuss their mental health challenges over a human counselor. And I think that's a very, very powerful pattern that is emerging. We were discussing about how banking has changed. Some countries have adopted more of digital payments versus others are still writing checks manually, and suddenly it has changed. Similarly, if you look at how people are looking at their mental health crisis, that has completely changed. So organizations will have to give a front seat to mental health now. Like Vicky mentioned, perhaps 2 or 3% people completed their learning aspirations or courses that they registered for. It is also interesting to note that every organization had some form of mental health support or mental health benefit given there. Mostly it was in the nature of some empaneled counselors that one could go to or take service for. Interestingly, the usage of such services is sub 3% again, so people are not really using it. But now that is changing. People are putting significantly higher number of hours, and they are realizing that things like loneliness, depression, lack of work-life balance, not only they are impacting it, but they are far more comfortable with this vulnerability, and people are openly talking about it. Imagine you would not have this as an office meeting conversation that, hey, I'm feeling lonely. But today, because of this environment, it is okay to go out and say it is lonely, and people are like to understand that because the majority of them have gone through it themselves. People do believe, we conducted a global study where we found out that 75% people believe that AI is already helping them or has the capability to help them. And I think that's a great news in terms of looking at how do you use technology in this context and even take care of the mental health. Of course, when you use bots, and let me qualify, they may not be intelligent enough right now, but as any other artificial intelligence, they are continuously learning, but they do provide a very judgment-free, unbiased approach and a quick 24 by 7 flexibility there. I remember once I wanted to try out our organization's mental health service, so I dropped in a note to the empaneled consultant for a meeting, and I was given a date which was like 4 days ahead. By the time I fought my depression or loneliness with a glass of wine, and I was over with it. But the important piece is that had I had that kind of a bot and I could have at a real time a solution there, it would have been great. And of course, AI is really, really helping. And I'm not going to bore you with this, but what is important is I want to talk a bit about this next policy, which is the policy of no policy challenge. In fact, I believe that the only sustainable policy in the future workplace is that of no policy. The moment you say policy, you have compromised the level of agility that you are offering to your organization. So I can see Stephen smiling, but the reality is that policy has to become redundant and compliance has to become central. The good news is using the right kind of mindset, attitude, and more importantly, technology, machine learning, artificial intelligence, IoT, those kind of things, you could actually be very high on compliance without having very stringent policy framework. And that will certainly add to the fuel of this war for talent. We just heard that organizations like Spotify or Salesforce have introduced the highest level of flexi working, which essentially means that you could work from anywhere, using any device that you want, choosing any time you want, and more importantly, do any work that you want. Because even the roles are changing and policies around roles will also change. Gone are those days when you would say that when you do a particular role, with the position, with the profile, also comes some kind of drudgery that you have to do. The next generation of workforce is perhaps not willing to accommodate that. They don't see a need for that, and therefore we'll have to find a way to re-articulate our policies. Organizations today, on the other hand, have a choice of a human worker, a gig worker, a full-time worker, a part-time worker, or even a machine worker. And therefore, they have much larger talent pool to play around with. The definition of talent is also undergoing a change. Earlier, talent pool was restricted to your employee base and potential candidate base. Now it includes just about everything: your consultants, your part-time workers, your full-time workers. As I said, bots and machines are part of your workforce and talent. Because what is very intuitive is, look at this. Imagine there is a bright software engineer, and like anybody else, she has multiple job offers, and out of these three, which one do you think she will pick up? Anybody in the current context knows that it is the job offer three. Now, if this job offer three is the preference of the candidate, this has to be the only viable policy for you. Otherwise, as an organization, you will lose on the competitive edge. So this one is around the policy of no policy, highest level of agility, yet very, very compliant. And lastly, I want to touch upon what Vicky very beautifully dwelled into and explained a lot about us. We talked about the lifetime of skills. There was a paradigm of 24 by 7, which essentially means that as an individual, I develop certain skill set, I pick up some qualification and build a career that I pursue 24 by 7. That number is now changing to 7 by 20. And ladies and gentlemen, 7 by 20 here means that people who are starting their careers now, on an average, will end up having 7 careers and 20 different jobs by the time they retire. So obviously, this 7 by 20 will mean that your reskilling outlook has to completely change. Gone are those days when I would invest, $100,000, get a degree, and then believe that I would scale up and excel. And that's changing. And therefore, while a couple of years ago, not too long ago, 2 years ago, we used to talk about how big data, analytics, artificial intelligence are going to be emerging skills. Today, in early 2021, we are very clear that we are preparing for an organization that does not exist, to run a business model that is unknown, to deliver talent with skills that are undiscovered today. And therefore, things like adaptability, learning mindset become the perpetually relevant skills. And therefore, organizations will have to look at what I call as the neural network of learning. What does it mean? So it is not just having a learning ecosystem, it is actually a much extended ecosystem where your organizational stories, for example, your gig opportunities, of course, the good old books, facilitation, everything comes together as an ecosystem, and that is provided by the organization. Today, unfortunately, part of it is provided by the organization, but a large chunk of that real learning is happening outside of the organization, within the individual neural network of the learning, which an individual owns today. Now, organizations will have to look at how do they augment their strategy. So in the end, I would say that agile is the way forward, and agile is a fundamental imperative. Agile means not rigid, very, very flexible, and we need four pillars of agility to drive an organization. An agile mindset, which essentially means people like you and I are constantly changing our outlook, constantly adapting to new things. Agile talent, remember the 7 by 20 formula, a talent that can be very quickly reskilled and very quickly redeployed, reach the peak of performance and do the process again. So this is something we'll have to do continuously again and again. Agile policies, I've talked enough about it, and agile technology, which means as and when new pandemics, new stress situations, new disruptions hit us, technology is ready and flexible, which incidentally can only be provided by using all those 7 8 technologies that Clive started this discussion with. So those are few of my thoughts around the 4 key challenges and 4 key imperatives that we will need to reset for the future or recalibrate ourselves for the future, to be perpetually relevant and perpetually ready and not just be reactive. Thank you so much.